Hello everyone, this is Ashley Tucker. Thank you for joining me today. For today's card, I'm going to be blending a Distress Oxide ink background. So I have a piece of Bristol smooth paper and I'm going to be using the colors Black Soot, Blueprint Sketch, Peacock Feathers, Cracked Pistachio, and Tumbled Glass. I like to use Bristol smooth paper for my Distress Oxide ink blending because I find that the ink blends really smoothly on this paper, but one thing that I have noticed is it's really easy to leave fingerprints. So in order to prevent that, whenever I have to touch the ink blended areas, I make sure to hold a piece of paper so that I'm not touching the paper directly, and that way I don't leave any fingerprints. For the stamping on this card, I used the Snow Much stamp set from the Simon Says Stamp January card kit. I placed the blended panel in my MISTI tool, and then I arranged some of the stamps and stamped them with embossing ink, and then I embossed them with Alabaster embossing powder from Brutus Monroe. Now, even though I used my heat tool to dry the panel and I went over it very heavily with my powder tool, it still wasn't enough to completely dry it. I should have waited a little bit longer. So I did have some of the embossing powder stick to some areas where I didn't want it to, but I just used a paintbrush and I brushed those areas away. After stamping and embossing with the white embossing powder, I stamped a bunch more of the snowflakes and I embossed them with Rainbow Sparkle embossing powder, which is a clear embossing powder with some sparkly glitter in it. I adhered that panel to a card base and then I moved on to stamping this cute little snowman. I stamped this with Gina K AMALGAM ink, which is a Copic safe ink, and now I'm coloring him in with some Copics. I stamped this on Neenah Classic Crest Solar White cardstock, which is my favorite cardstock for coloring with Copic markers. If you're curious about what colors I'm using, I did place my marker caps up along the top so that you can read the colors. I tried really hard to pick out some colors that matched the background that I created because I want all of the elements of my card to go together really well. I did get 7 new Copic markers for Christmas, and those blue-greens that I'm using are some of them. So I was really happy to be able to use them on a card right away. Another thing that you might have noticed is I did get the Tim Holtz glass mat for Christmas from my wonderful husband. I really love it, and it's really easy to clean. Anyways, I shaded the white parts of the hat and the gloves with a few really light gray markers, and then I shaded the snow of the snowman with some really light blue markers. Once I was done coloring the snowman, I cut it out with my Scan and Cut, and then I stamped this small thanks sentiment on some Bazzill Licorice Twist cardstock with embossing ink and embossed it with Alabaster white embossing powder. I used some scissors to freehand cut a little hill shape out of some white cardstock, and then I blended some Distress Oxide ink in the color Tumbled Glass along the bottom edge to give it some shading. I adhered that right onto the corner of my card with my ATG gun. I glued down that snowman right on top of the hill, and then I used my Wink of Stella glitter brush to add some sparkle to the white parts of the hat and the gloves. Now, I actually had a little bit of paint left over on the Wink of Stella brush from a previous project, so it turned those white areas a little bit gray, but that's okay. It did not bother me enough to start over. I popped up that little thanks sentiment and I added some sparkle to that, and then I added a few sequins around the sentiment. The last thing that I did to finish up this card is I took my white gel pen and I added a few highlights to the snowman. So here's a closer look at the finished card. Thank you for watching today. I hope you really enjoyed this card design using the Snow Much stamp set from Simon Says Stamp. All of the supplies that I used for this card today can be found in the description down below. If you enjoyed watching and you're not a subscriber yet, I would encourage you to hit that subscribe button so that you can see all of my future videos. I'm going to be back with a new video tomorrow. Again, thank you for watching. I appreciate all of you, and I hope you have a good day today.